Okay, I'd like to call the Newburgh Dundee School District 29J Board of Directors meeting to order for August 27, 2024. And I'll ask Director DeHart is unavailable tonight, so I'll ask Director Wolfer, sorry, to do the salute. Thanks. Okay, we are going to recess to executive session as per ORS 192.662E to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to negotiate real property transactions, and ORS 192.6602H to consult with legal counsel regarding legal rights and duties of the public body with regard to current litigation or likely to be filed. Representatives of the media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend executive session. Executive session will be held in the superintendent's office. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on or otherwise disclose any of the deliberations or anything said about such subjects during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decisions may be made in executive session. At the end of the executive session, the board of directors will return to open session. Okay, so we'll go back into executive session. I'll be back shortly. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to call the Newburgh Dundee Board of Directors, School Board of Directors back into session. We've just returned from executive session, and I did excuse myself from the deliberations regarding real property transactions as I have a conflict. So do we have any agenda additions and or deletions? Director Wolfer, did you? No? No? Oh, Director Hayden.
Yeah, I wanted to add just an update and discussion item for the Financial Advisory Committee. Get some input from the rest of you and talk about potential dates of meetings, et cetera. So,
Okay. And then under, oh, that's for future agenda item is the appoint the members. Okay, so under reports, we'll add Finance Committee at the end. That's okay. Then we will move on to the consent agenda. It's in your packet. And of course, we always like to really call out the foundations that support us, and the Austin Family Foundation has really come through with Tiger Cub preschool program, the K-2 career connected learning support, and the middle school implementation and behavior support of BAR. So thank you very much to the Austin Foundation for their continued support of the school district.
I move that we adopt the consent agenda as presented.
second.
Any discussion? Okay, I will call for the vote. And just so as a reminder, I'm now asking people to say their vote, and I think we'll probably figure out a way that's a little bit more easier to manage. But I started with Director Nichols last month. This month I'm going to start with Director Allen.
I'm gonna give a suggestion. What if we did it like we did before, where we raise our hands so it's still simultaneous, and before we put our hands down, we just read out, we say our names. Who voted? Might be quicker that way, rather than one at a time.
Okay.
4 people do it, and then we just read out loud. So for those who are listening here, Director Wolf or Nichols and Hayden voted this way or something at the end. So you can still say all in favor. We raise our hand, read it out loud,
Okay.
and then do it.
Okay, so I think I understand what you're saying. So can we have the vote? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So we have all in favor. And so now we go back and ask?
Was it? It was it.
You,
was
unanimous, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if it hadn't been, then you would just you could just say
Great.
Director so-and-so voted yay.
Okay,
I think
that seems a little more complicated to me.
it's just quicker that way.
It's
a little more
I get your
organic.
point. Okay, so it was all in favor. All of the board directors voted in favor.
All the ones who are here.
Oh, correct. All that were here, and Director DeHart was not available to come to the board meeting tonight. Moving on to our reports. First up is personal electronic device policy review. Director Wolfer.
Thank you. I prepared a couple things. So we didn't have time to put it in the packet, so I apologize. It will be uploaded later. I'll get to it, but I did have a draft potential new policy. I'll explain that in a little bit, but it's based on another district near us. It's almost verbatim. That was given out to the board members tonight. So our current policy is in the packet. It allows some use, and I've been speaking with some administrators regarding this and their desire to have a more strict standard. The state is probably going to come out with some sort of ban, probably statewide come the spring, and many districts around us are moving forward with a ban. So some of the problems with our current is that it's almost impossible to enforce. They're using kids are using cell phones in passing periods. They're using them in class. And so administrators have asked us as a board to take a look at some policies, or take a look at our policy and kind of bring it up. If you look at our policy, it was originally written back in, I think, 2008, and the last update was like 2015, and smartphone device has become a lot more prolific since then. Some of the things that I looked at when talking about this, we have a lot of problems with cell phones. I was discussing with some of the administrators at our schools. Just this year, the Surgeon General of the U.S. Wants to, or gave a warning, wants to have a warning label put on social media on how it damages the mental health of adolescents. I brought a couple studies. I can always pass out to you guys if you want, and we can upload them later. But there's some studies about the significant mental health issues that have been tied to cell phone use with adolescents. Dr. Jean Twenge conducted extensive research, has tied it to 2012 is when we really started seeing anxiety and suicidal ideation just skyrocket. A lot of people try to blame the pandemic, but really 2012 globally has become the big turning point, and that was when smartphones came on the scene. And as they have gone up, the bell curve for these issues with behavioral issues, anxiety, suicide, have really increased with that. And so they're starting to believe that that is really the only cause that we're seeing. We're seeing increased suicide risk. We're seeing decreased social skills. A lot of Gen Z that have come of age are actually some of the big push of this, because they are having trouble getting jobs. They don't know how to look people in the eye. They don't know how to do a lot of social issues that they're saying is a lot largely because of these devices. If you go to a school and you look around at lunch, rather than having a lot of conversations, you'll see people just on their phones. And with the developing brain of adolescents, it's really, they're seeing a lot of the chemical responses are a lot like a drug addiction. You got kids get these itchy fingers. Just today in the school I work at, it was freshman orientation, and a kid was walking in, and as they were getting greeted by people, immediately pulled out the phone and just started scrolling. It's what they're going to. It's their go-to. So the teachers and administrators are, with the current policies, they're frustrated because it feels like it's really falling on them to police these issues. And when they do try to, then parents are pushing back and saying, well, where's the board policy saying that you can confiscate phones and do things like that? There are other places there are some other studies that are showing that pretty much in the entire US, all students, despite these policies, and all places other than that have done the blanket bans, that all students are still using them despite whatever policies are going on. I'll speak to some of my personal experiences. Recently did the SRO conference in Oregon, and they talked a lot about this, the brain rewiring and the addictions that the students are having with developing minds, and how when a brain is developing, new connections are being formed every day and tasks, but when they're looking at a smartphone, no connections are being made when their brain. So it's just empty space. And so times that an adolescent brain and child brain should be developing connections and learning social skills and math skills and all these things, they're just not. It's just they're getting empty spaces instead. Some of the things I've seen in just 3 years of being a school resource officer, I've seen a huge increase in drug deals. Kids are actually able to go on Instagram, Telegram, and Snapchat and just order drug deals. They are delivering right to Newburgh and Sherwood and Tualatin from all over. They'll just come and deliver these drugs. Hard drugs, marijuana, all of it. They're also setting up deals going into bathrooms. They'll go to the bathroom and set it up on their way and, meet at a certain bathroom. Other things that I've seen, fights, things that would have affected us as kids where, maybe there was a fist fight, that broke out in school. Now they're getting filmed, and these kids have to relive it over and over and over again. There was a phone that I had to take in my line of work, did a search warrant on an unrelated issue. And unfortunately, this kid, every couple weeks, someone would send him a video of a fight he lost for like 2 years and continually relive it. He never, ever got to live that down. And that caused additional behavioral issues. They're arranging these fights. We're seeing fights going on in bathrooms, and the kids are bringing their phones in there, and they're arranging it to do it in the bathrooms where they know they're not going to have a lot of supervision, and they're having fights. Seen that a lot in like the girls' rooms or girls' bathrooms a lot. They're having a lot of fights in there, is what I've seen. Another really big issue is the nude photos. A lot of the studies are showing anywhere from 25 to 70% of underage, especially girls, but underage students in general have sent nude photos. 40% about middle schoolers have, and those numbers are probably higher. Those are self-reported studies. I know I personally have dealt with whole rings of kids who are in class sending each other the nudes that they've collected. And every phone I get has nudes on them. If I take them in my line of work and to a search warrant, every single one of them will have nude photos of other students. Beyond that, we're also seeing studies are showing that 1 in 12 students have had nude photos of themselves forwarded without their consent. So they're having blackmail issues. They're having their photos that they may have sent consensually to someone forwarded. And a lot of this is happening during school hours. We're seeing like TikTok challenges that we're dealing with, like shoot up your school day that goes viral. We're having a lot of kids are falling for scams where they're getting contacted on social media by people saying, you know, posing as someone their age and then asking for nude photos. And then as soon as they do, then they're extorting them for money or they'll share it with their friends. That particularly tends to target male students, but it does affect all genders. And we're seeing in those 1 in 4 victims are age 13 or younger. And 2 of 3 are under 16. And beyond that, if you talk to any teacher, we got disruptions in class, difficulty learning. Kids are pulling out their phones and devices all day long. Not to mention, you know, we have online predators and things like that. And a lot of this is just going on during the school day. And I know we have no, you know, it's up to parents after school, but I think, you know, they're in school for, you know, 8 hours a day. We can really cut down on that time that they're exposed to these things. Some of the concerns I've heard from parents, some pushback, is that things like in a crisis, like an active shooter incident, they want to be able to get a hold of their children. A lot of studies are showing that's actually really bad. So kids are taught, like the curriculum they're taught is to hide, be out of sight. Phones buzzing, phones going off. If they forget to put the ringer, that can give away their position. Additionally, we want administrators on their phones so they can contact first responders. And if you have, you know, thousands of kids on their phones or even, you know, 1,500, that can overload cell phone lines and then nobody can get through. So we really don't want that really. I get it's a comfort issue, but really the thing's going to be safety, and we don't need parents texting with their kids during these things. It's not helpful. The kids need to focus on their safety and hide. Just overall, there's lots of studies that are out there that they're overwhelmingly detrimental to school safety, to school learning. Another one that parents really want to get to is that they want to be able to reach their kids during the day. I'm just gonna be frank here, for decades, you called the office. That's what we need to do. We need to go back to, if you have an important message, going back to these distractions. If you talk to a lot of the students, they do get frustrated because their parents are texting them all day. And when we go to jobs, some of our jobs make us put phones away. We can't be texting all day either. So I think that that's just something we got to get back to, that the kids, you know, if there's something, an emergency, short of like a medical device, they don't need to be getting texts all day from their parents and things like that. If it's really important, they can leave a message with the office. And like I said earlier, Oregon wants to move forward with a ban anyway. Portland schools, Lake Oswego, North Clackamas, and coastal schools have begun implementing door-to-door bans. Sherwood has done it through K-8. Where basically the phones have to be put in a backpack. Some of them are working on getting devices like the Yonder bags. If you've looked at those, they're pouches. For our size schools, it probably costs around $300,000. But there are grants out there, but that's not what I'm proposing at this time yet. But it would be where they would basically put them in their backpack from the moment they walk in the door at the school until the moment they leave. Passing period and lunches would be no exception. Schools that in other states that have implemented this have already reported large academic improvements, higher test scores, less anxiety, increased social skills, less body dysmorphia, as kids aren't looking at, you know, these AI images and models all day and things like that and comparing themselves all day. They're seeing a large decrease in behavioral issues and safety issues throughout the day. And that's just over, a lot of them have started doing this a year or two ago. So I did the one that I've passed out to the board members. I took this from Lake Oswego's board meeting yesterday. They passed this, I believe they passed this yesterday, and they had it on theirs with a lot of the language. So this was just, it could technically under our policy be a first reading, which all a first reading is that It's just an informational. My intention would be that the board looks at it, and that this gets put into a packet tonight, later if we can, or at some point when it's convenient. I know you have a lot going on, Dr. Radish, but at some point if this can go on there, because I really want to get some parental feedback, want to get some administrative feedback on some possible things. But the basics of the one that I'm proposing, that I really liked about theirs, is just about smartphones and wearable computers are just going to be put away. They talked about in their board meeting that having them in the backpacks is a lot better, because then even when they get up to go to the restroom, it's gonna be pretty obvious if they go to their backpack to try to retrieve their phone. They don't want to do that. And it gives it would give the schools, individual schools and superintendent an ability to do an AR policy for specific implementation and consequences. But that would allow the schools the ability to put in place more stringent ways to enforce this in a progressive discipline policy, and how exactly they're going to do that. One of the administrators did bring up the yonder bags if there was a grant. But I think that my purpose in this would be just to basically put our policy and our attitude towards it, is that we would prefer these are put away all day, minus, medical device, and that it's up to the individual schools. So that is the presentation.
Could you speak a little bit more about your conversations with administrators and the types of requests that they have, and the urgency that they're feeling?
Yeah, so the reason I kind of wanted to have this more as a first reading under our policy was just because of that urgency. I do want to implement this whatever version, September, October. I don't want to rush it, but I want to not put it off. I have talked with high school administrators, which is really going to be where it's going to be the most. I think we're going to see it the most, because a lot of the K-8 is already kind of going this direction anyway. But the feedback that I got is that they're really wanting the board to have a stricter policy. And even some surrounding districts, they like the Lake Oswego policies. They like these things because they are having some pushback from parents who want to be able to text their kids all day. And that, we're going into the school year. I know we've been in crisis mode for all summer, but they're really wanting to now, as we move past that, to start looking forward into things that can really help our students' learning. So they were really wanting just something that gives them a lot more tools to be able to kind of really control this pretty big issue that they're having in their school, and get kids back on the track of learning.
I think this should go to the policy committee. I'd like to see OSBA's other guidance that they might have or other language around it, and just have some, to see what our options are besides just another districts. That would be my thought on that.
Yeah, I think it'd be great if it went to the policy committee. I think just as long as we do have a little sense of urgency on it. And I know we were talking about rearranging some of the policy committee, but OSBA doesn't have a lot on it yet, which is why I had to search for this, because a lot of them have just been kind of, hey, we're going to be doing this. And a lot of them are still being written. This is one of the first that I could find that is being written. So I don't know if they have anything yet, other than it's coming from the state. So this is a little bit ahead of the curve, but
Yeah, I guess I would just like to, if we could get some kind of comment from OSBA to find out what they have. Also just, a similar situation where we don't want to take on a policy that has possible legal problems for us.
sure.
Just those kind of things that we've run into previously that I would like to avoid while we do this, prudently.
I think also, I understand the sense of urgency. At the same time, I'm always quite hesitant to enact something, right at the beginning of the school year, without getting as much data and as many voices as we can. I really want to hear from teachers on this. I know as an administrator, there's always one view, but I think the teachers are the boots on the ground with this, and I want to make sure that we make space for their voices. I also would be curious to see, in looking at this in the last couple of days, once I saw this on the agenda, I also watched the Lake Oswego school board meeting where they were discussing this. So there are some specifics with the way it's written that I think we should dive into when the time is right. But I was also looking at just our general discipline policy for students, and sort of the process of first offense, second offense, third offense. And I'm wondering if that specific policy will need to be updated, or if there's sort of an additional sort of an addendum to our general discipline policy that will be specific to personal electronic devices, because it is, I think it can be handled in a different way. And there are opinions out there on the legalities of, personal property and disciplining against personal property versus disciplining against behavior. So I
Sure,
think that
yeah.
those need to be looked at carefully. I agree. But then at the same time, I do think that this is an incredibly important thing. And I think that it will be coming statewide. And it's a huge, huge issue that I would be proud of us to take some bold action on.
Yeah, I think just so everyone knows here, this was me writing this was just like, or stealing the language really. It was just meant to be a starting point. Because yeah, I did want as much feedback as we can. I just didn't want us to put this off until spring knowing, hey, the state's doing it, or, second, third, whatever trimester. I think, even if it took all first trimester, do it right the first time. But just, yeah, I agree. Going back to the policy committee, but this just was meant to be a starting point for us, being that our old policy was incredibly out of date with the data and with what's really out there. So,
Appreciate it, Director Wolfer. I'm going to play a devil's advocate a little bit here. I 100% agree with almost everything you talked about. But having two children that are highly ADHD, music in their ear all the time is going to be impactful. I know there's language here that says this. So either one, personal devices go away, like cell phones go away, but then they don't make iPads or iPods anymore, or any musical devices that aren't phones. Thinking other people that I know that have the 24/7 diabetes alert, and so their phone is what gives them the message. And I know that's very specific in here too, and be covered. I would like to, what I'm concerned with is if we enact this too, and then parents will try to go a 504 IEP route to say, hey, my kid has ADHD and they get a cell phone all the time. I think there's gonna be a rebound effect here a little bit. And now, of course, every major policy change may have that. I hope this doesn't cause that, but I know we may want to look at that as well, as like what's if there are other states even or districts even with Oregon that have kind of tackled that part of the problem. I know, again, I agree with everything you've already pointed out. So that part's, you have my thumbs up on that. So
speaking with the 504s, obviously I'm not an attorney or any expert on that, but from what research I have been able to gather is that the legal landscape for schools is heavily in favor of schools protecting safety, and this would fall under that. So because there's a lot, it's kind of like there are nicotine. Actually, in Oregon, there is no law that says that there's no like enforceable law where kids can't smoke, or smoke nicotine. That was removed, I think, a year or two ago. However, the school can remove that despite a 504 even if they try to have that or something like that. So a lot of those things fall under school safety. And I don't know. I think that would be going to Director Allen's, going back to OSBA and things like that. But that would be where I would anticipate that, is that there are other ways besides a communications device that could be an accommodation for those students, I think.
And I agree. And that's where I'm saying this. We need more information, because at this point, again, I don't know of any music devices anymore that you can just download MP3s and play them. Go back to Discman, go back to cassette player. I don't care. But I don't, the way our technology is nowadays, I don't think that's a possibility anymore. And now you're infringing on my kids' rights to be able to meet their medical needs. And so that's why I just want to make sure we're covered there from that perspective before we just go into this as well. So.
Yeah, and I did keep that in there, that's what Lake Oswego put about 504s and medical devices, but I think that there would be a line there, and that would be something for attorneys or an AR policy to really define that. And also, I didn't want to go too specific because, again, I want to have it more of what our expectations as a board would be, and then have specific implementations go to the experts like our, superintendent and administrators and teachers. Good points. Thank you.
I have lots of thoughts on this. Kind of along those lines with that, I like the idea of having a broad policy that then district sites, the experts in the room can actually enforce. But I do think that board support for a couple different like educational campaigns is going to be important, which is a hard thing to do when we don't have money to throw at more curriculum. But I think to make a policy like this and then not have follow through would be detrimental. So I think that in the event that we get to the point where we get to enact a policy like this, there needs to be a set schedule for check-in and feedback. But I think there needs to also be a fair amount of parental education that needs to happen. There needs to be student education that's actually impactful and like at the student level. And those languages are going to look very different. And then there also needs to be education for our educators. Because our learners, like Jeremy or like Director Hayden mentioned, our learners are totally different than they were in 2015. And our students are very much used to learning 504 or ADHD or not with music in their ears. And there has to be a level of respect for that to meet our learners where they're at now. Because there will be whiplash when we, remove that even from, our from all of our students. So I just think I don't know how we will do it. I don't know how we will find the funds and the organization. That could be a committee that comes together, but there has to be a series of education that just goes beyond creating a policy and the discipline portion. Like there's got to be buy-in for it to track, in my opinion.
Okay, this has been a very robust discussion. So it's time. I think what we probably want to do is push this to the policy committee. Now, in September, we're going to be talking about rearranging the committees. So I'm a little concerned about, timeline on that. I want to be mindful of, because I think this has been a really great conversation. I think everybody's brought up really good points. And I understand the concern of parents to be able to connect with their kids. And I thought you've done a great job of bringing these things. So I think the next step is policy committee. And the current policy committee is Saul, Director Allen, Director Wolfer, and Director DeHart. And I know that I have expressed and talked with Director Wolfer about stepping back from the policy committee. And I know Director Woodward has expressed interest in getting on the policy committee. So I think the next logical step is appointments of committee members in September. And we can all do our own homework. I thought your comment about watching the Lake Oswego board meeting was really interesting. And the timeline between now and then, we'll start to see if there's pushback and, concerns. And I really appreciate your comments about kids needing that noise in their air to sort of focus. So,
Well, I was thinking, just to jump in there, is that's why I thought this would be a great starting point, jumping off point, and I wanted to not just talk about it, but at least bring a potential policy that someone else was doing. And that way, in September, we can put the new policy committee and they at least have a starting point. And we have a couple of weeks to start gathering that feedback because the community can hear it. I have some further follow-up meetings with administrators, can see what they think about this. And that feedback can then be directed to the policy committee as they move forward.
And I don't know, Dr. Radich, if you know who would be in charge at this point of requesting policy updates from OSBA regarding this and other policies we might be looking at.
That would be the interim superintendent.
Perfect. Thank you.
Is it possible to seek feedback in like a formal way from community and from staff between now and September? Like, can we do a formal gathering?
I am concerned about our communications, interim communications director's availability to put something out by then. But guess what? People are going to be, they're already talking about it, right? So we'll start to hear feedback, but I think we do need a formalized, communication. So that might be down the line a little bit. But I think all of your points and having our students rep here to talk about it and how they're going to present that information will be really important.
I think too, plus our next meeting will have public comment. So hopefully there will be people, if they feel strongly one way or another, or if they send in things. And also, like I said, I'll be sending this out and to the administrators of the schools to see what their thoughts are and if they can push it out to teachers too. So
I wasn't going to weigh in, but I'm going to. My caution to the board is to go slowly. I understand that there is some urgency from administrators and so forth, but this is a larger issue, I think, than maybe we understand. I would advise us to map out all the processes that need to be in place and what are you asking the public to react to if we don't have a policy formulated by the policy committee, then you may be getting feedback on something that isn't even going to be in existence. I would propose that you might think about something that would begin we have trimester, but let's say the mid-year, because I think it's going to take that time to really think this through and to do all the things that you're talking about. How do we manage the students with disabilities? How do we handle this? Is there a possibility of a pilot of some kind? I know it's important, but I think it's important enough to slow it a little bit more.
And I might just add in as well, like we're talking about this is a real addiction, social media, everything that's going on. And it isn't always the best way to deal with something like that, to immediately cut something off and not have a clear rollout of, whether it's for the first year, there is time during the day where you're allowed to do that, because it can cause a lot of extra anxiety and a lot of more distraction when you are dealing with not having something that you feel and your body is telling you need.
Okay, well, I'm excited. I think this is really critical to have this conversation in our community, and we'll move forward with, passing this on to the policy committee, and the September meeting will identify committee members. Everybody good with that? Okay. Thanks, James, for the work that you've done. Dr. Radish, would you like to talk about the reduction in, well, I'm sure you don't want to talk about it, but
I don't,
reduction in force.
but I do believe that our board and community deserves an update regarding where we are. As the board is aware, the district underwent a series of reductions in force twice. We had a first round around May and then a follow-up round this summer, which was much more comprehensive. The total number of FTE, full-time equivalent staff, reduced from the budget was 85.99 or 86 FTE. However, that could be misleading. I think it would be closer to say it's probably more like a 90 number, because this does not include contracted positions that were not filled. And because they're not our employees, they wouldn't show as a reduction in force. So as the board is aware, there are reduction in force in all employee groups, including the administrative group. And since those reductions have taken place, I'm very pleased to announce that all of the administrators, in particular our building level administrators, have stepped up and accepted additional responsibilities. The principal at the high school is working with our human resources department and working to develop systems. The principal at Mabel Rush is working with our technology department and taking a leadership role there. Our coordinator for teaching and learning is assisting in coordinating district library services, and the list goes on. I think I sent you a list of all of those, but I'm very proud of them. They have full-time jobs as it is running schools, but are willing to step in and help us during this year when we're very, very shorthanded. As the board is aware, there are 8 furlough days that were agreed upon by the associations. During that time, those furlough days, all staff will be not at work, all staff, with the exception if the superintendent determines that a position is absolutely critical. Let's say, for example, we have a boiler issue, we need to address that, then that individual may be called in, but it would be a superintendent decision at that point. I've been through furlough days before, and I can't think of any time when I've had to call someone back, but I suppose it's always possible. The cost savings to the district would be approximately $210,000 per day from the general fund. That does not include some of the other special funds that we use to support staffing. It also does not include any of the utility savings. Transportation costs will still be somewhat, even though we're not transporting students, there's the contract with the transportation system continues to pay drivers. And I know that seems very odd, but that's how that contract was negotiated. Also, there would be, we're not counting in any of the savings yet for any of the federal grant funds, nutrition services, and so forth. So as you know, in furlough days, it means less time for students in the classroom, and that's of concern to us and also to parents. There's good news and bad news. The good news is that the state of Oregon, as you know, does not require a set number of days of school. They do require a set number of hours, instructional hours. And we did an analysis, as the board is aware, of the instructional hour requirement, and we are in compliance with instructional hours for all grade levels, with the exception of grades 9 to 11, and they are 1 hour short for the entire year. We estimate we'll be able to manage that. The concern I have is that while we may be in compliance with the state, this is still not the best for our students, and it does concern me that students are out of school. As the board has approved the calendar for this new academic year, the furlough days are in there, and as we've talked about previously, most of those days are in conjunction with a weekend or prior to a holiday. So hopefully families will be able to enjoy that. However, we also know that daycare and childcare is an issue. And the district will have some of the facilities will be open for childcare. We're talking, and I know Director Nichols will talk about this in a little bit. We are talking about maybe having an east side and a west side location potentially for childcare, if that's possible, rather than opening up all of our schools on those furlough days. I don't know if that's possible. We would need to work that through yet. And finally, class size. I have included in the board packet the ratios that we applied to indicate the number of teachers that would be needed for this school year. Those class size allocation numbers are actually the same as when I was here 12 years ago. They're very similar to neighboring school districts. What we had the last 2 years is an anomaly. That's not, we couldn't afford that. We didn't afford it, and we couldn't continue to afford that. One of the other things I'd like to mention is that we do not know how many children will be arriving in our schools until they show up. We have an estimate, as you can tell by looking at the enrollment from last year and rolling that up. We have had requests for transfers, but we've also had requests to transfer in. So some class sizes will be large at the beginning of the year. We'll evaluate those, and we will make adjustments based on individual circumstances. There also may be some that are too small, and those will be dealt with right away. So I want to assure you that we're going to retain and maintain these ratios and give tremendous credit to Gail and Jacobson, our interim director of finance, for all of her work, as well as our leadership team and the associations for working through that process. So be happy to answer any questions you might have in that regard.
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Gail, and everyone who's done this awesome work to help us get this school year going. I am curious about the the instructional hours that we have allocated already. And I guess I'm just curious at how the middle school hours are so much higher than 9th through 11th grade even, or any other class for that matter.
You know, it could be the way the schedule is with the trimesters and the periods. I would have to defer to Gillian Felizardo. She's the one that calculated this for me. So rather than guessing, I will try to get that answer and get back to you.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? I know there's a tremendous amount of work. I would pop into the district office and there were always lots of folks here working hard, and these are not easy tasks to undertake. So I appreciate everybody's work on that. Okay, so Director Nichols, would you like to talk to us about childcare and furlough days?
Sure. In your board packet, you can see that Dr. Radich and I met with 2 representatives of CPRD a few weeks ago. And we met with Julie Peterson, who's the Director of Special Programs, and Erin Harrington, who is the Director of Childcare Services for CPRD, and came to them out of concern about the furlough days, knowing that those were, scheduled fairly late in the summer, and concern for working families making plans. Over the summer, CPRD had changed their childcare payment structure for care. Last year, they had individual drop-in day times or a cost. So if you wanted to just pay for 1 day a month, you could. That was changed over the summer before the furlough conversation. So now for care, there's a part-time fee for 12 days or less a month and a full-time fee. So there really was not an option for families seeking 8 days throughout the year. Thankfully, they have completely, they rose to the occasion. When Dr. Radich and I met with them, we requested that they come up with a furlough day plan, essentially. And they have done that, and they've turned it around really quickly. So I'm very, very grateful to them. So they have come up with a plan that is a $60 fee for the furlough days. They are agreeing to offer care for 7 of the 8 furlough days. The 8th furlough day is that last day of school, or what previously was the last day of school, and care would be done by then. So they will not be doing that June 1. So $60, that is for a family who is not already enrolled in care. For families that are already enrolled in care and paying either the full-time or the part-time fee per month, you are able to take advantage of the furlough day for no additional charge. So that is a big win for families like mine. We are a part-time family at care. I was worried that furlough day would put me right over 12 days a month. And they already kind of had a plan for that. So we're very grateful for that as well. A concern was, where are we going to do care on furlough days, knowing that we need to be closing, that our buildings need to be closed. Erin Harrington, who's the Director of Care, she met with the principals last week. They, in agreement, came up with a plan. Each elementary school is taking a different furlough day. I believe Mabel and Crater are taking 2 furlough days. So that will be communicated to care families. So if it's the September furlough day, it will be at this school. Transportation will be on the families for that. We won't have, our transportation doesn't cover furlough days, but so there's a plan for that. That is all on the CPRD website as well. She also had just a positive meeting with all of the principals that I think Dr. Radich and I found out had not really happened in the past. So that was a good point for them to touch base and just make sure that everyone is being respectful of each other's spaces. The other kind of surprising piece of information that Dr. Radich and I found out during this meeting was that we do not have a formal agreement as a district with CPRD. There is not a current intergovernmental agreement, or IGA. And we requested that quickly. So Julie Peterson, who's the Director of Special Programs, she has found a past one that is many years old. She has delivered that to Don Clements, who's the Superintendent of CPRD, who has handed that off to their legal counsel, and we will be hopefully getting a formal agreement made, which I think would protect all parties. So overall, I'm very grateful to CPRD for hearing us and reacting quickly before the school year. I think that there's still a valid conversation to be had about our families and their plans for their children for these furlough days. CPRD Care is a great program. It is, they really do a great job for our kids. It is still very expensive. And there are options for families who cannot afford it, but it is a complicated thing. You have to get approved by the state. The state sends money to CPRD. It's not an easy process for families. So I am very grateful to Erin Harrington and Julie Peterson for doing this work and for the principals for coordinating and getting those days done. And I hope that we can continue to talk about how we care for our students and our families for these furlough days moving forward.
Appreciate the setting, taking the initiative and meeting with CPRD. I have a question though. I had two questions, but you just answered the last one recently, just because you said talking about financial aid or assistance if needed. My other main question though is in recent prior years, there's been definitely a big push, or even in policy, to say that outside organizations, including CPRD, cannot communicate stuff through the school. Like you can't do handouts or whatever. So how are families going to find out about this that aren't already at CPRD affiliates, or they do things through CPRD? Because those might be the families that may be impacted the most and may need it the most, and are not in the loop. So
Well, it seems to me that that would be included in the intergovernmental agreement, that there's a mechanism by which CPRD would be able to have that communication with the district families. And then, we could take it upon ourselves to put it through all of our communications. And so I think easily put that in through the intergovernmental agreement.
okay, and then I guess I would ask the board policy to make sure there's nothing conflicting with the IGA with board policy as well. So
Yeah, that's great.
In the short term, parent groups at each school, I think are always interested in how to best care for families. And I would hope that parent groups could help communicate to schools. I would hope that parent groups at the schools could help to get the word out to families about any opportunities to make this year easier.
Well, and I also think that our amazing communications director could put it in our board update from our meeting today. Thank you very much. And thank you for your work on this. I put my kids all through care, and great. They loved running into care every morning at Dundee Elementary School. Okay, so Director Wolford, do you want to talk about our next round, our complaints that we've had? Improper executive session notice. The complainant is Rebecca Wallace, and the number two was the lack of proper notice to superintendent. And that is also a complaint from Rebecca Wallace.
Sure. Yeah, we received two more complaints. They're in the packet that was provided to the public. One was that in the complainant's view that the school board did not properly cite the executive session, as well as in the second complaint, or when the board took action on July 29th. The second complaint was regarding that same action, that there was a lack of proper notice. You'll see later in the board action items, there is a resolution drafted by district legal that we can discuss at that time and take action on.
just point of clarification, are these two new complaints or the fact of the ones that we've already addressed, but now she is escalating them up to OGEC?
These are two new complaints that we received after our last board meeting. So the complaints that are already at OGC that have been escalated, which is a fair number of them, are being reviewed by OGC and do not need further like action as a board. So these are two new complaints that we received since our last August board meeting.
Okay,
Yeah, August 16th, we received both these complaints sent to us.
also, I was not even part of that board meeting. Oh,
This is but it was about the July
I know.
29th board meeting you were. Yeah.
sorry.
So later, yeah, again, you'll see the resolution drafted that we'll need to discuss and decide if we want to adopt.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I hear you, but I thought getting emails about updates about these. I thought there was some that we had a resolution to, but then she is now officially complaining to OGEC. So these two items are not it?
Yeah, these are two new ones that are separate from those actions.
Okay.
Dr. Hayden, just since I sent in the replies to OGEC, for OGC to listen to a complaint, it comes first to the local board. We rule on it, and then that can go to OGC depending about if the complainant thinks it needs to go further. And we have had, I think, 3, 4 that went further, and we've responded to them, the ones that you've done, and OGC has, I think, 60 days after we respond to make a decision if they are going to investigate further. And so right now, the ones that we've responded to have not been ruled on by OGC, but we have responded as board members as and I contacted OGC to make sure when I was sending things in, since I was doing it on behalf of the board, I called them and I said, what can I legally do? And they said, if I send my response to each of you individually, and you would only respond to me individually, that's legal because you have the right to know since I'm representing the board. And you can also respond if you want to, but since that's against the whole board, it was considered a response for all of us.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so these two were both new complaints, and per our policy, I believe KL, we have, I think like 20 days to respond. So we had to do it at this meeting. The resolution, if you look further, is resolution 2025-06, and it does cover both complaints. So when we discuss that resolution, if we adopt it, will take care of both complaints.
Thank you.
And I'd like to say that I've requested that Director Wolfer sort of be point person on complaints to the board, and that Director Woodward is handling the OGEC complaints. These are very time intensive. Every complaint, we need to take it seriously. And there is, I think, in the packet as well, a list of all of our complaints in a chart, and also our public records request. I think it's really important for the community to understand the breadth of information that's being requested of the school district and the amount of work that it takes to comply. And I just think it's really important for the community to know that while we're really working hard to do the work and get the schools back up and running, we're also having these to manage, and it's just, time consuming, and the board needs support to be able to, move forward through them.
And I also want to thank our district legal. This is also very time consuming for them. The last couple complaints, they've really taken on them to do the resolutions, which has saved me a lot of time as I was writing those before. And it's really helpful. But I also want to recognize that it's taking a lot of time for them. They are the Willamette ESD, and so we're not the only school they represent, but we sure are using a lot of their time right now. So I want to thank them, as well as Dr. Raj. I know you're also getting a lot of these, and without a lot of help and for free. So really want to thank you for your time on this as well.
And I do think it's worth the community understanding that the potential for each individual board member to be fined if found out of compliance on these complaints is a significant motivator. And I'm just going to say that I think that there's an interest in making sure that we are complying with all the rules and regulations. But if we are all fined, if we were personally fined for all of the complaints that we've personally had, because I do think that the complaint fine can go up to $100,000,
I think it's 1,000 per,
1,000 per.
but I would have to find that we were willful.
What, yes. So just, I'd like the community to understand that there's also a potential for each of us to be fined individually. And then I think that that should not just go unnoticed. Okay, so moving on, I'm going to discuss the interim superintendent hiring process, a little update. We've just been very fortunate to have Dr. Radich as the superintendent, and her contract will expire on October 13th, 2024. I think that might be a hard date. And that the board finds it's necessary to secure a long-term interim superintendent. And at our meeting on August 13th, 2024, the Board of Directors approved the Confederation of Oregon School Administrators, which is known as COSA, as a search consultants for the district. In our packet is a timeline. This is a draft timeline. Dr. Radich and I worked on this where we did appoint the personnel committee to help to move the process forward a little bit. And we have some potential dates. We will not be having a personnel committee meeting tomorrow, just so everybody understands that. And I've worked with Claudia Stewart to identify some timelines regarding the input that we've already offered to the community. We're extending that until the end of the day on September 3rd. I think that's the day we come back. That's the Monday or the Tuesday after Labor Day. I just want to make sure that I've got that. So that link, which is up and is already getting feedback, which I'm really excited about to hear, is already up and going. And there are some, the COSA will post, we'll have interviews. So it's just really, I think, very helpful for folks to understand the processes. We're going to be looking at opportunities to do a forum for staff, and then also community forum to meet the finalists. We've tentatively set that for September 26th. Just understand that this is a draft and it will all be posted on the website for clarification. So if anybody have any questions about that, or thoughts of what we might add, or is there something missing? And
Quick question, is this going to be the same situation with the policy committee where there's going to be an update to it next month?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. If we look at our interim superintendent vacancy posting, this is also a draft. COSA helped put this together. It's very similar to documents that they have prepared for other school districts. A couple things I would like to point out is that the last sentence in the first paragraph, which is the board is also seeking candidates that have Oregon superintendent experience and a deep understanding of school funding and the state school funding formula, SSF, is critical. That's an addition that we've made. In bold, it talks that these 6 points of what we would like, the qualifications for a board, these are samples only. And so when we get all of the input from the community, that will adjust, and we also will make sure that it's meeting our policy guidelines. And so I think this is really important for the board just to all sort of have an understanding of the process and moving forward. And with hopes that we would actually have an administrator in place in October. And all of the applications will go to COSA, so they will not come to the district office.
Two questions. One, was there a date when we'll see a final list of all applicants from COSA? Like, when do we see, like, you know, hey, we have 5 people and they're X,
Well,
Y,
we
Z?
had the finalist interviews on sort of tentatively for October,
Well, that's finalists, like,
but let me,
September 20th, you have position closes.
Oh, yeah.
So receives and transmits
to the board.
to the
oh,
board.
there we go.
Yeah.
I think
Thank
that's
you.
where we're looking, because then we're, tentatively scheduled for the personnel committee to meet and review, over that weekend.
Yeah, it
Okay.
looks like you have on the 24th, a regular session of the board, conduct screening interviews and narrow the finalists at that time too.
Yeah.
Second question is, Director Allen just talked about something to do with policy. What policy updates do we need to do? And I don't know if policy updates are going to happen within the timeline this is requiring.
No, my apologies. I was talking about we had said that the policy committee might be updated with members.
Oh, I see. We're
And
saying,
so I was
okay.
curious if that was the same thing that was happening with.
Oh, well,
The
we're not
personnel
gonna,
committee.
we won't change the personnel committee at the next meeting, just because we'll have already been doing that work.
Okay.
But we could change it for moving forward after the interim process is done. I think that's fair if there are some changes on that.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it for that. Jeremy, do you want to talk about the finance committee?
Yeah, what a way to segue into kind of a calendar. This is kind of like, so, I missed last board meeting. I watched it. We had a discussion about the do's and don'ts about how the committees work. So at this point, what I would like to do is try to, and as a collective here, I did not reach out. So first of all, I apologize to any of the candidates that I said I would email them or reach out to them last week. I did not. I thought we were going to do something last week that I could not do or we could not do. So I will be reaching out to them ASAP. But what I would like to do is try to come up with a calendar of events. I would like for the interviews to maybe take place either before the next scheduled board meeting. So is that right? But then I know then there's a whole holiday weekends and that could throw out schedules or throw off schedules. So I'm not sure quite. I'm like, I guess I'm looking more for guidance or suggestions from the group on like what should we do. Like, could we do interviews before one of our meetings and then discuss as a whole and collectively agree on our 3 candidates? Currently, I think our focus is, of the committee members so far, which is me and Director Allen, and then 2 budget committee chairs, is really just look at the candidates. We have 11 of them. We reviewed their applications or any additional information they provided. Some people provided like another document that kind of gave more of like a CSV. But essentially, I know our focus is looking for individuals that have, financial experience, maybe a CPA, CMA, or have had, financial experience in school districts or public entities that can help guide us in this committee. So I think we've narrowed it down to maybe 5 or 6 individuals that we should reach out to for interviews out of the 11. But again, I'm just trying to understand and get suggestions and consensus here of how to move forward with this.
Director Hayden, as I recall, when Claire Hertz on the budget committee and I worked together, putting this together, that it was the responsibility, they'd have to reread the policy, but I think it gave the responsibility of presenting the 3 finalists to the 2 school board members who are on that and the 2 budget committee members that you.
I would agree. I think us 4 could have the final say,
Yeah.
but also we need to make sure it's public and make sure it's posted. And so there's this, we're juggling here and we can't have a meeting without posting a public meeting. And do we have a time to do all this discussion before doing that? And so I'm taking the opportunity here to get a consensus from this board of how to move forward.
Yeah, so if I could jump in, I think part of it is just not having necessarily experience of setting up these public meetings and making sure that we do them with enough time, and helping us get guidance so that we don't
Yes.
run into any problems while we're trying to do this in the right way. I think that is part of this calendar idea so that we can have it clearly posted for the public when it's needed, and so that we can make sure that everybody on the committee has those times available and can plan to meet. So any input, suggestions?
One suggestion I have is that it came from our OGC, the Oregon Government Ethics Commission, is if you have a question about posting and what you need to do to make sure that, even a committee meeting, like, screening, call them and ask them for advice. They'll give it to you. And they'll give it to you immediately. You can email them online, you can call them on the phone, and they'll call you back. And so I think that might be a good starting place, because then you know for sure that you're within the public meetings laws.
And I do think that the board secretary previously had scheduled the meetings, and if they're through Zoom, they get, a link done that way so that it's going through the school district and it gets transmitted as well. Did you guys meet in person for personnel?
Oh, for
Not person.
Policy?
Yeah, policy,
yeah,
sorry.
we met here in person for
Yeah.
policy,
Okay.
but that was scheduled through Mr. Lindenberger, who took care of those parts. So I think that it just almost, I assume a request for institutional knowledge among everyone here, and
Sure,
maybe that
yeah.
could just be shared at another time, but I think it's fair that we want to do this effectively, and maybe we'll reach out to OGC, but just taking input as far as leading a committee, I know I am fairly novice, and
I know.
Just going from the policy committee meetings that we had, I think if you scheduled your first one, you could probably reach out to those people just to see if you have a date that works between now and then, to schedule that first one to get together, and then start going with the calendar from there. And then once you have that first date, then I'm assuming that Dr. Radish, you would be able to provide some guidance if they've noticed that properly. I don't know if.
Yes, and I can certainly help with the public notices and the calendar. If someone would want to sit down, we can maybe do a draft and
Okay.
see how that works. That would give me an idea when we need to get the posting out.
Okay.
Great.
So long term, here's where I would. The only other question I have is, no matter which way we do it, we're either right after a meeting or right before a meeting. It's like, would you like anything that comes from this financial advisory committee to be done like right before our budget or our normal board meetings, to if there's anything that they want to bring in, or is it okay to wait the whole next month, which could be maybe 3 weeks later or whatever, right? I don't.
may I?
Sure, go ahead.
What would the rest of the board like as far as a timeline on updates from the finance
There we go.
committee, compared to what we're just doing independently? I think is what Director Hayden's getting at.
Yes, thank you.
I think maybe at the beginning, some more frequent ones might be helpful, such as like who they are going to be and what your plan is and calendar. And then I think as you go through, you may not have to update us as frequently unless there is something significant that comes up that is found, because I think a whole point of this is also to help safeguard. So if you guys come up with any major changes we should be doing, or you catch something earlier the better, and then otherwise maybe some periodic updates once you've gotten it established and your feet under you.
And also, it's been a little while since I read what the finance committee is going to do, but was that including sort of setting a calendar for the budget? We pushed, Nancy and I pushed to have our budget process earlier and not in May.
Mhm.
And I think that that was not recommended by administration at the time. And so I think that's really critical that
Yeah.
we move that up. Also, we all have the opportunity to watch the committee meetings. I know that it's going to be a great place to learn a little bit more about what's going on. And so, but I think a little update from, time to time is really good.
Okay.
Yeah, it just seems that it's just getting this launched is the biggest
Yeah.
Yeah.
hurdle right now. And once we get that, I think it'll all be a nice roll downhill from there.
I might add that a good budgeting process should begin in October, at least with the superintendent and staff preparing budget assumptions based on data. that could give a huge lift to the advisory committee and some confidence that the district is planning budget every month. We're not just waiting and to engage people at the end. We're doing it all along the way, and that we trust our citizens are going to have good input regarding some of these assumptions as well. And an example would be, what is our assumption relative to utility rates? Well, we know where the data is. We know where the companies are. So who's going to collect that data and begin to do those projections? So there's a lot of work that should be done beginning in October and should be done monthly and then recalibrated at least twice more before the budget is actually built.
Thank you.
I was just going to say, I think that the two budget committee people who are going to serve on the finance committee also good resources, because Claire Hertz has immense experience, and so she can give a lot of guidance about, you know, what is appropriate for, you know, this task that you have. And Kat McNeil has served on the district budget committee for like 11 years. And so I think that you have resources who are going to be working alongside with you that can really help guide too.
100%.
And then I think I just would like to wrap up by saying I really appreciate both of you, Director Allen and Director Hayden. You know, singularly, I think that this is one of the most important tasks that you will be taking as a board, to understand our finances, but also help our community understand where we are and where we need to get to. So it's not a light lift. I really appreciate both of you stepping forward to handle that.
Thank you. So in closing, I'll say that I will reach out to I think I have 5 or 6 individuals on that list and start asking them about what their availability is, maybe the same week as our board meeting, and see what we can maybe coordinate for timing. And then I'll talk to Director Allen and then reach out to Dr. Radich about communicating that out. So
I guess I just have one last follow-up. Do we need to have those community committee members voted on by the whole board, or are we just going to appoint them as?
I think it's us two, and the 2 budget committees have the right, per the
Okay.
documents,
Just making
we
sure.
have the right to make those appointments. So
Okay, now we're moving on to board action items. So the first one is the contract excuse me, extension for the interim director of finance, Dr. Radich.
No, thank you. On June the 7th, Superintendent Phillips entered into a personal services contract agreement with Gail and Jacobson to serve as interim director of finance. And as all good interims terms come, there's also an end. Her agreement was for the period of June 7th through September 1. Since we're right around the corner, my recommendation is that the board extend her personal services contract. And Galen Jacobson has indicated that she's willing to remain until such time as a more permanent director of finance is hired.
So to clarify the last sentence you just said, that this is kind of open-ended at this point?
We do have applications for the position of
Okay.
director of finance, and I anticipate potentially a few more. And we are talking, Ms. Jacobson and I have been talking about the process for those interviews. Unfortunately, I know some of those applicants and will need to recuse myself from the process, but I can at least help get that underway. And I'm not actively personally recruiting. These are people I just happen to know that have applied.
Thank you.
I move that the Newburgh School District Board of Directors approve the extension of Gay Ellen Jacobson's personal service contract as interim director of finance until such a time as the district hires a director of finance, including such a time as needed for transition.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I'm just wanted to check, the contract that's in here is the previous contract. That's correct. Is that maximum total possible payment adjusted or will that stay the same? Sorry, on page 37.
Oh, I did not number. the
No.
bit-
Right on the front page there.
Oh, thank you.
Maybe.
Right here. We have not hit that number yet.
Okay.
What I could do is talk with Ms. Jacobson and ask her if she were to project out when that number might be hit, that I would let the board know, but we are not there yet. We will be getting closer as the next couple months roll out. But also, we have an additional request tonight that I think will help move some things along.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? I will call for the vote. All in favor? Aye. All in favor, and the motion passed unanimously. That's tripping me up. Let's talk about the additional contract.
I'm wondering if Galen is online.
Should be online. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, we can hear you. I'd like if it's all right with the board for Galen to present this. She knows this individual and is very familiar with the work that we need this individual to do on a personal services contract. We're not able to hear you.
You can't hear me now?
Now we can, yes.
Okay. Andre Schellhaus was with Northwest Regional ESD, and before that, she was with Beaverton School District in several different positions as the, excuse me, fiscal administrator. So she handled all of the audit work at both Beaverton, and then when she moved to ESD, she handled audit for multiple of the districts that had business managers through the ESD. So two of the things that we want Andre to work on is prep work for the audit so that I'm freed up to work.
Galen,
on-
sorry to interrupt. I don't know if you're covering your mic right now, but you're nice and loud and clear. Now it sounds like you're muffled. So
I'm
that sounds a little
not
better.
touching anything. Can you hear me
Oh,
now?
weird.
Okay. So the projects that we would like to have Andre work on are audit preparation, as well as she has extensive knowledge of the vision software and the budgeting models. So she would be helping us with the budget blocking, as well as position control slash position budgeting to get controls in place so that we do not wind up in the position of hiring.
Yeah,
more
I'm
people.
sorry, Gail, and I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but we really can't understand a word you have just said. Other than it sounds like you've identified the background for this individual, has extensive experience from the ESD and Beaverton School District. And if I understand is that this individual has an extensive understanding and experience with audits, and that this person will help prepare Newburgh School District finance for their audit. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes,
And there are two.
that is correct.
Good. And there are two other items that Galen mentioned. One is to do something called budget blocking, which is a feature of the system where we need to go in and make sure that there are controls in the system. That's critical to us maintaining balances, checks and balances in the system. And the other part of that is, again, a check and balance called position control. And while I can do position control on a piece of paper, it is nice to have an electronic system that also checks and balances us. So those are the three areas: audit prep, budget blocking, and position control.
And if I'm to understand that the budget blocking and position control are two features that would help avoid the current situation we're facing.
I would say yes, if people pay attention. If they don't, then it won't matter.
I see item number A under the background is provide financial software. Is this proprietary software that Andre Shellhouse has like developed, or is she bringing like a third party software? And what type of support do we need for that?
If you can hear me,
That's loud and clear now.
oh, good. She is going to be working with our Visions software. Nothing external to that.
Okay, so that's already a software program we already have in-house, owns it. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Well, I move that the Newburgh School District Board of Directors approve the personnel services contract for Andre Shellhouse, effective August 27, 2024 through October 31st, 2024, as presented.
Second?
Any further discussion? Not, I will call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Board passed the approval of the personal services contract unanimously. Thank you.
Guess I'm up again. All right. Let's go to page 54. This will be the complaints. This will be the complaint resolution of the two complaints from Rebecca Wallace, as mentioned earlier in the reports section. There is a resolution 2025-06, and I can read it. That will, if we approve it, will resolve both complaints. And I guess I can read it.
Was it in the board packet?
It was in the board packet.
I don't,
So.
unless you feel that we need to read it, I don't think you need to read it verbatim, so.
No, it essentially just, it essentially finds that, yeah, the public can read it. I'll just read the conclusions that the, August 16, 2024 public meetings law complaint is meritless. The board did not violate ORS 192.610 to 192.60 or 705 as alleged. The decision to not extend Dr. Phillips' contract is not null, as Wallace has asserted. There's no basis for rescission of that decision. And for avoidance of doubt, the board reaffirms its decision to not extend Dr. Phillips' contract effective July 29, 2024. And the superintendent will ensure a copy of this resolution is provided to the Oregon Government Ethics Commission and the complainant. And that resolution will resolve both complaints.
Do you have one question on the second complaint? The complainant actually referenced the OAR. Did our council and any discussions with this talk about that OAR and if it's even applicable to us or if we need to address that at all?
I believe that's in there talking about the written notice as what was, let's see, I believe it's number 1, administrative rule.
I just don't see the OAR actually written out in the response.
It's mentioned in number 1 and administrative rule. So I think that's what they're
that's
really
what
talking
okay.
about, is that it's not really applicable in this situation. The complainant misstates what was done.
Director Hayden, it's on number 10. Says the complaint, that the one that you're, I think, referring to is the complaint, states that the board was required to convene an executive session under ORS 192.6602B before exercising the right to not extend Dr. Phillips' contract. And the complainant has misjudged the nature of the conversation between the district's attorney and the board on July 29th.
I think
So
it's actually also in number 9 where that OAR talks about a factual termination, but number 9 talks about it's factually inaccurate, is what council was also saying. We exercised our contractual right to not extend Dr. Phillips' contract, and he is still employed by the district, just in another role. So that would be inapplicable at this time, is my understanding.
Thank you.
May I suggest, because I know one thing I struggle with is, even as I see our executive session 192s, I'm never fully sure what things we were talking about in the executive session are listed under those. Is there any way that we could maybe help this issue by having a paper in our executive session that shows which items we're talking about or go under what?
Yeah, we could, probably at least, I don't know that I want to do a paper, but we could state, we're discussing this topic, just like when you were discussing property and I had left, we could have said, now we're going to discuss this item under
Yeah.
XYZ.
And I guess just for me, like there's some like real transaction property, real property transactions. That one seems more obvious when I'm in the meeting. Other ones, I'm just going in the assumption that council, everyone has listed the things that make sense. So I struggle in this because I don't know individually all of those things.
I
if
think
they're
that's
just
a
there.
really great idea because it also helps us remember what this one is and also keep conversation to just that, what we're cited for.
I think it would also help, just to give the benefit of the doubt a little bit to the complainant, is that it appears the complainant has misunderstood and used essentially layman's terms or layman understanding of some of those, of considering dismissal or things like that, whereas those have very specific legal mechanisms of when that would be, that were not applicable. And so I think that may help, maybe it'll help cut down on some of the complaints if those were further explained. So that may help.
Yeah, I would agree with Director Allen. I think I actually brought that up too, either in OGEC training under the second one or executive sessions or not. That would be better just to have clarity. Somebody should just have a master list. Doesn't have to be written out and printed to everybody, but at least verbally express at the beginning of the meeting, this, when we go into session, that first bullet, which is B, sub B, E, H, whatever it is, it relates to X, H relates to, 1, 2, and 3 or whatever. It'd just be helpful. So
Great idea. So, would anybody like to find a motion?
I move that the Newburgh School District Board of Directors adopt resolution 2025-06, a resolution concerning the formal public meetings law complaint filed by Rebecca Wallace on August 16th, 2025 by title only.
We need to do.
Yeah, I'll get that.
Okay.
Second.
Any further discussion?
So just so we know, by adopting this formally dismisses complaint number 1, but we will also have to also discuss complaint number 2 as well.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
All right, complaint number 2 was what you were discussing, Director Hayden, that the allegations of OAR 19904000030 parentheses 1, just saying that there was a lack of proper notice given to Dr. Phillips, which is also addressed in that same resolution we just adopted. So what this one recommendation would be that we move to dismiss that complaint as adopted in resolution 2025-06. And I'm happy to make the motion. So unless there's any questions first.
I mean, I don't know how to formulate it. I'm not going to try to go beyond what council has clearly done a lot of work on. I am kind of confused about discussing if OAR 199, et cetera, is about anything discussing their employment,
So it would fall under,
or this is the complaint that was written.
this is the complaint as
Understood.
written.
Thank you.
So it's quoting directly from her complaint from Rebecca Wallace. So I'll make the motion, move that the Newburgh School District Board of Directors dismiss the August 16, 2024 complaint by Rebecca Wallace regarding lack of proper notices noted and adopted in resolution 2025-06.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
I do have a procedural question. Will Director Wolf be sending the resolution, a copy of it to the complainant?
I believe in the resolution, the superintendent will send that out to.
But that's to the OGC
And the complainant itself.
and the complainant.
So
Okay.
all that's, but I mean, I can, but I think we just, if Dr. Raj, if you're okay sending that back. Okay, and then so the complainant will be notified that both complaints were dismissed under KL and that CETA following that, and then we will update, I can update the ongoing list that we have.
Thank you. As I said previously, I think that the updating of this list really helps all of us understand where we are in these processes and the community as well. So moving on, we need to declare and advertise an interim superintendent vacancy. And I did discuss that Dr. Radish's contract is expiring and we have to declare that there is a vacancy and then advertise that there is a vacancy for an interim superintendent. And so I have a resolution to read. It's resolution number 2025-07, a resolution declaring a vacancy and announcing the advertisement for the position of interim superintendent for Newburgh School District 29J. And under recitals, whereas the district's interim superintendent, Dr. Radich, was appointed under emergency circumstances for a period of limited duration, and whereas Dr. Radich's contract as interim superintendent will expire on October 13th, 2024, and whereas the board finds it necessary to secure a long-term interim superintendent for the 24-25 school year, now therefore be it resolved by the Newburgh School District 29J Board of Directors that a vacancy is declared for the position of interim superintendent, and be it further resolved that the district hereby advertises the vacancy, additional advertising to be made by the district search consultant. So would anybody like to make a motion?
I move that the Newburgh School District Board of Directors adopt Resolution 2025-07, resolution declaring a vacancy and announcing the advertisement for the position of interim superintendent, Newburgh School District 29J by title only.
Second.
Any further discussion? I'd like to go to the vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay, so this next one, I'm going to just read the background so that we're kind of all on the same page. The Board of Directors is at a point where the legal counsel needs frequent guidance concerning contractual and employment issues involving Dr. Phillips. Additionally, the board wishes to avoid any perception that confidential information may be leaked from executive session or be of hindrance to the board's ability to communicate with its attorney about such matters. In order for the board to efficiently and effectively provide guidance to its counsel and otherwise manage such matters, I recommend that the board delegate its full decision-making authority to Director Wolfer with a few limitations to the extent they are or will become applicable. First, should Director Wolfer and legal counsel recommend a contract with Dr. Phillips, the final contract is subject to the approval by the board. Second, the board retains the right to make any final decision about exercising its right under paragraph 10B of Dr. Phillips' employment contract, which is a for-cause termination. This is, we're at a tension point, and we need to be moving meaningfully and with frequency. And I have, some of you may know that I have taken a part-time job, and I have limit to my breadth of ability to manage all of that. So I asked if Director Wolfer would be willing to be the point person to work with our attorneys. So I was initially appointed to be the person who would find the attorney, but the scope of authority did not extend to my ability to work with the attorney to negotiate anything. So that I'm asking is that the board delegate this authority to Director Wolfer. Advice of legal counsel, frankly.
I would say that personally, I am hesitant about not being a part of those conversations, as it is one of the, few duties of all of us regarding what's happening. Obviously, if everyone is in agreement that we should step back from that, then I would gladly accept that. But yeah, I'm hesitant in not being a part of that, as it just is fluid.
So understanding the reasons why we need to have a bit more discretion in the in communications is part of we've been hindered. And so that's where we're at now. Did you want to say something?
This was at the request of the attorneys. I will say that the attorneys involved feel a little chilled having these discussions in executive session, because without making specific allegations or accusations, there have been concerns brought forth by both by many members as well as members of the public that information has a potential, or at least a perception, that it could be leaked to the other party in this, and they don't feel comfortable explaining to the entire executive session potential back and forth or numbers or things like that that could be then directly strategies or things like that directly leaked to that person, or even the perception of it. They would like to keep that a little bit more and be able to move with a little greater speed on those. Any final decision would still come to the board.
Director Allen, I see this as kind of a time-sensitive issue, and, for the board, the whole board to meet in executive session, once a month or twice a month, we're not moving forward at a very reasonable pace to make some very major decisions. And it seems like if Director Wolfer can work with attorneys and give feedback, and then, as it states, the resolution is that the whole board always makes the decision.
I recognize that it doesn't feel like our lack of executive session times has been a hindrance in terms of the updates that have happened. So in that regard, it doesn't seem like that is the crux of the issue here. I understand what you're saying. It just, again, I guess I feel that it's been an important step for all of us to be involved in that. And yeah, that's just my feelings on it.
I concur with Director Allen. I don't feel comfortable giving one person, it doesn't matter if it's Director Wolf or any other director, full decision-making authority, except for the two things outlined in here. One of our main things, I think, as Director Allen's alluding to, is we are, overseeing one employee, and that at this point, that employee is still an employee, and we are trying to work with how to go through legal matters with that employee. I think we all need to be aware and in the loop on everything, and not just have one person doing decision making, even though there might be minutes. There's a reason why there's boards of 5 or 7 people from different perspectives asking different questions, so we learn differently, and having one person make some of those decisions I don't think, I understand the effectiveness may be timely, but I don't think it's the best for the situation we're in. So
one of the things that council brought up is that anything more than one is a subcommittee and therefore needs public notice, and then would also invite the media. And being that this is a legal negotiation that involves strategies and certain cards that want to be held by the board, there is a significant concern, being that there are again, without making specific accusations, that there is a board member who has had this person at their house, and there is a media member that is very close with this person, and that it is a chilling effect on the attorney that they feel they cannot give us, hey, here's 2 different strategies, because they feel that may walk right over, or could be walked right over to that person. So they can't provide us those strategies with what we have in the room. Whereas, any other employee that was not a superintendent, they could be just dealing with 2 lawyers.
Well, and I totally respect your concerns. I do know that we're not getting updates. We're not getting the depth of an update that we need to have for a conversation about where we are. And I know that because
They've told us that.
they told us that.
They don't feel comfortable telling all of that when they have other people in the room. But legally, with one person, they can go into the breadth of that. With that, I could still give periodic, if this is voted on, periodic updates. I think it would just be leaving out maybe certain high and low numbers or this or that, things like that, that they would be concerned would just walk right over.
I get it, but this is a collective voice. This is one voice, and to me, all final decisions except for these two things outlined is not the collective voice. And I get that the attorney feels constrained because of the people that are in that room, but this is not, to me, this is not how we should resolve this.
Well, I guess do we have further?
I just, I hear the perspectives here, and I think it is something that we all are going to do our very best to look at from every angle. Understand this, and I believe that I support this movement. But I just would like to state, for the record, how unfortunate it is that we would have to make this kind of decision to deal with something this sensitive, that that we're effectively not able to deal with this in the way that the board is set up to deal with it. And that I think I feel the need to state that I understand this. I think that, in my opinion, this is a decent way of moving forward with this, but what an unfortunate situation to have such unique outside forces guide this kind of action.
Yeah, I want to echo that. I think Directors Allen and Hayden, I 100% agree. I wish we didn't have to. And honestly, this would not have even crossed my mind had it not been brought up by the two ESD attorneys, as well as being carried over from, the employment attorney, as well as they're strong and having to really, when they talk to myself and Chair Bridges about why they needed this, I wish we didn't. So that I think that I wish we could just go, but I don't know. You weren't at the last one, but a lot of them have felt definitely chilled.
In any discussions, either last executive session or now, or in the side discussions is leading to this, is there any other things that could be possible to remedy this? There are ways we can censure, we can do other things.
Well, we couldn't discuss what we discussed in executive session, but I do know that when we had the OGEC, it's very clear that there's really no teeth to any confidentiality and requirements. I mean, we could say, please don't do that. We actually have had sort of conversations about confidentiality, a reminder. Just remember that this is a confidential process. I've also have mentioned that no, I'm not going to say that. Okay. So I don't think that there is a middle ground here. I think we need an appointed person for the board to work with the attorneys to move us along. This Director Wolfer isn't going to be making big decisions, but we need somebody to be able to be that point person. And I don't think any of us want to make this decision in a silo.
I do know that if appointed for this, that my intention is to give as many updates to the rest of the board that council would let me, if that makes sense. That anything that's not something that they want to hold in, but any other updates or anything significant along the way.
I move that the Newburgh School District Board of Directors authorize Director Wolford to provide guidance to district legal counsel concerning all of Dr. Phillips' employment and contract-related issues, and to make all decisions that the board otherwise would be making concerning such matters, subject to the following limitations as may become applicable. Any future contract with Dr. Phillips shall be approved by the board, and one, and two, the board retains final decision-making authority under paragraph 10B of the contract.
I second. Any further discussion?
I just would like to state yet again, I'm sorry if I'm being repetitive, but for me, this is a decision that is a looking into the future and eyes on the prize, not a decision that that I take lightly. Not a vote that feels great to do, but is something that I feel is necessary to move on as a district.
Any further discussion? Okay, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we have 4 ayes. Any,
Do you want to give the names of the ayes?
so
Aubrey Nichols, aye.
Nancy Woodward, aye.
Deborah Bridges, aye.
James Wolfer, aye.
Any no's?
Jeremy Hayden, no.
Saul Allen, no.
Motion passes 4-6. Thank you. 4-2,
4-2.
sorry. 4-6. I don't know where that came from. Okay, I think it's probably time for just a very quick break. Okay, and then we are going to go right into the public hearing on identifying qualities and qualifications for the interim superintendent. Let's just take 5. Okay, let's reconvene after our short break. My interpretive dance techniques are very limited, so I don't think I'm able to handle that. Okay. We are coming back into the Newburgh Dundee Public School Board of Directors meeting after a brief break. We are now heading into our public hearing to identify qualities and qualifications for an interim superintendent. On Wednesday, I'm going to read just some background and then some of the guidelines. On Wednesday, August 21st, 2024, Newburgh School District 29J posted notice of a public hearing to elicit community input regarding the qualities and qualifications of the interim superintendent. The public was also invited to attend the August 27, 2024 special meeting of the Newburgh School District Board of Directors and contribute input regarding qualities and qualifications orally, in writing, or via online submission using the link provided by the district. On August 27th, 2024, the Board of Directors of Newburgh School District 29J will be asked to provide board resolution 2025-07, a resolution declaring vacancy and announcing the advertisement of the position of interim superintendent of the Newburgh School District 29J, which we did earlier. Once input is received from online, written, and or in-person comments, the district will update the job posting and advertisement. Public hearing guidelines. You need to sign up. Members of the public can sign up to provide public comment before the meeting begins. District students should identify themselves on the sign-up sheet, and they will be called first. Time limit. Speakers are typically given 3 minutes to testify, but this may vary depending on time constraints. Speakers will be asked to identify themselves by name at the beginning of their comments. For written testimony, members of the public can also submit written testimony before or during the meeting or online until 11:59 p.m. Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024. That is a change from what was identified in the board packet. We've extended the timeline. The board chair will decide who speaks and in what order, and the board chair may ask staff to respond to questions or comments raised during the public comment period after the meeting. At the conclusion of the public hearing, the board will discuss future agenda items. The meeting will then adjourn. So we have one person who would like to speak in our public hearing, and I'd like to invite Elaine Koskela to come speak at our podium.
Hi, is this on? This feels really weird just because I'm the only one. So I'm going to tell you this. I posted this myself. I am Elaine Koskela. I am a former employee of the district. I will talk about that at one point. I also have 3 graduates of Newburgh School District. The oldest just got her PhD. We celebrated that this summer. So kudos to Newburgh. So I posted this online and got a ton of feedback. So I would like to tell you a little bit about the feedback I got too. But as I thought about the qualities and qualifications, I think an interim superintendent needs, they almost all fell under the broad category of experience. And I've already heard you guys say that. You know, we're reeling from the dire financial mismanagement, and the current staff and volunteers are working really hard to restructure, rebuild. And I know that, and I appreciate that. And that was some of the feedback I got today was like, shout out to the board for your hard work. Shout out to the teachers. The teachers, I got a text from a teacher who said, like, the teachers are actually kind of excited that are still there. So I wanted that feedback because I think my perspective as an outsider who left is sometimes a little bit more negative. Yeah, so I think that this person needs to have experience in order to rebuild and to work with the people, you and the current superintendent who's volunteering. Um, so I kind of broke it down into areas, and you already talked about financial situation, and I would just like to reaffirm that. I'm not going to read this. I'll hand this to you. I would say that they need to have experience as a superintendent of a school district our size or larger, just to be safe. I think that if they do, they're going to have contacts that it's going to help with recruiting and retaining experienced staff. And the piece that I also heard Dr. Radich mention today is just so that they understand the structures that need to be in place to operate efficiently and with proper checks. I think that's key. They need to have experience with that. I said experience with special programs. Of course, anyone who's been a superintendent in a school district our size or larger is going to have experience with special programs, but I want to call out a few that I think have been really hurt from lack of proper leadership. SPED, dual language might be a little bit unique to us. And I don't know that, I just think that the encouragement hasn't been there, knowledge of how it really should be run. And what I've seen is just we lost staff, and it's just dissipating. So that would be really great. Alternative ed, I could say the same thing. Some experience with alt ed, that's my specialty. And it's hard to see what's happened. Alt ed should not be a repeat of the high school in just a smaller setting. So that kind of thing. And then online programs. I think Newburgh is kind of unique in that we do have a ton of people who choose to homeschool or to put their children in private schools. And I think that we need to be the best school district we can to support them too. And so you need creativity, you need knowledge of the laws around online programs and how to do that. And not just online, but dual enrollment, that sort of thing. Okay, so another thing that I just said is someone who's capable and experienced working with a board. And that's not any reflection on you, but you've all been through the fire and you're fairly new. Your experience has been unique. I think we could say that. So someone that really knows how to work with a board. This is unique to Newburgh, I think. Experience working with diverse people and folks from different political backgrounds. You all know we're red hot on fire. And it's tricky to me because I both want someone who's not, it isn't going to be, what was the word I used? I'm sorry, I'm not reading this because it was too long and now I'm making it longer. They're not going to be beholden to any particular group. But the other thing I think we really need is someone who can also have the authority to call out BS. So how do you do that? That's kind of a social thing. So I think a very experienced superintendent is going to be important. So the last thing I wrote with experience is maybe experience with Newburgh. And this isn't as important to me, but I think because it's so unique, because there's staff that live here that have dispersed to other places because of the problems, that some familiarity with Newburgh is going to be very helpful. So if possible, some tie, some familiarity with Newburgh, I think could go a long ways. So real quick, two things that aren't really qualities or qualifications, but personal opinion, if you're hiring an interim, if you could get someone for 2 years and not just one, I think that would be incredible mostly because a long-term superintendent search is going to take all your time. And I think your focus right now and the focus of everyone needs to be on making sure that our programs are good and making sure that our schools are well run. So if you could get a 2-year person, that would be awesome. The other thing that I probably don't need to say, but I just want to say is whatever the pay is, whatever kind of contract you do, that needs to be given to the public beforehand. And it should be in line with, other districts our size. I'll just say that. Okay, that's all.
Thank you very much. Let me reach over into here. Okay, well, do we have anybody else that would like to address and speak during this hearing time? Okay. If not, then I will close the public hearing, identifying qualities and qualifications for the interim superintendent. Remind the community that there's still opportunities for people to give their feedback, and would appreciate everybody taking the time to do that. And so I will close the hearing. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going back into our regularly scheduled board meeting. Our future agenda items are, we're going to be looking into the personal electronic devices. The interim superintendent hiring update will come. We are looking forward to class size and enrollment update and an enrollment study. And then also very excited about updates from the Finance Advisory Committee. Our next board session is scheduled for September 10th, which is our regular scheduled meeting, and appreciate everybody being here and listening and having really good, robust conversation. Thank you, and the meeting is adjourned.